to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
Do what?
Hip hop?
Keep up anonymous.
Why does he get all the easy ones?
There was a older couple west of here, and they had I want to say they lived in like a big double wide, but they had a mountain lion as a pet.
What?
I've heard that they're like, they'll chill out if they're like,
for whatever reason though,
you have them for long enough or whatever.
Somebody
So it decides not to.
That's
he
true.
went in there and he's a
Your
cowboy.
kid rides by on a bike and goes, hey.
He always wears a straw
hungry.
hat. And he went in there and that cat started growling. He said, "What's the deal?" And he goes, "He doesn't like straw hats." He's like, take the straw hat off. You'll be fine. So he did. Cat chilled out. Hour goes by. He's sitting there visiting. He goes to the bathroom. And, needs his
Not even
hands.
thinking,
so
yeah.
he puts the hat on. And it's like one of those bathtubs right next to the toilet it still has the curtain up. And he's sitting there going to the bathroom and he hears, he said, he pulls the curtain back and that cat jumps on his back on top and just rips the top of that straw hat off.
Golly.
And his head?
No.
No.
Once the hat was
Just
off, like he was
doesn't
done.
like hats.
He just doesn't
Or
like
the
straw
straw
hats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Who hurt him?
A man in a straw hat.
In a
Yeah.
straw hat. Just
Yep.
backhanded
Yeah.
that mountain lion.
Old
He was
McDonald.
like,
That's the
right.
true story of Curious George.
That's
than
right,
the man
yeah.
in the big yellow hat.
He was actually a mountain lion.
it's
Yes.
actually a mountain lion. Man, I read that hippo story like 10 times and I was like, can you imagine? But then that guy died. I mean, it's not like he's sitting there being offended. He's dead.
Yeah.
Just being dead.
Would you rather swim with a hippo or a great white shark?
Well, hippos are like the most dangerous, and aren't they faster than great
I don't know
whites?
if Great whites?
Great
I don't
whites.
think they're faster than great whites. I think they're like.
I think hippos are the
there's
fastest
there's
freshwater
probably a
animals, right?
Better
They're
chance.
fast.
There's
Yeah.
probably a better chance of you not getting killed by the great white shark.
Yeah,
Like,
we
there are
could just
people
chill.
who have swum with great white sharks.
Hippos are just pissed all the time, right? Like they're just mad. They just want to kill things.
I mean, if you looked like that, wouldn't
I know, right? We stared at hippos at the zoo for so long. We went to the zoo, I guess in Abilene. No. We were in Fort Worth with Riley, and we got to the hippo enclosure
yeah.
or whatever it's called. Yeah, the enclosure, yeah. And we stood there, and that's when we realized, why didn't we go to an aquarium? Like, because Riley did not care at all about these animals. Like, we would get there and be like, look, because you have to look so far.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. And she's just all over the place. And then we got to the hippo enclosure, and she was just like, just mesmerized, because they also have all those tiny fish in there as well.
Yeah.
So she's just sitting there and she's just staring up at it. And I'm staring at the hippo and I'm like, golly,
Those are big.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
the most dangerous in the world. At least
Can you
freshwater.
imagine having a pick if someone was like, all right, I'm either going to put you in the river with the hippos or in the water with a great white shark?
What if the hippo's name was John Cena?
I would, I think if we're being honest, like if we're really contemplating that, I think I would instinctively be more fearful of the great white, but logically would feel safer with the great white.
Statistically, you got a much better chance with the great
Yeah.
white.
How much water do I have with them? Is it a tub like
So-
this big?
Well, and so what we know about great whites too is that
That would
like,
be more dangerous.
you might die
Yeah.
from
Be
a great
thrashing
white
it.
shark, but they will probably not try to kill you. You would die because their bite's so intense.
Yeah.
If
blood
they were,
loss.
but a hippo's like actually gonna
Kill you.
demolish.
And a
you.
hippo, aren't hippos known just to kill you? Like, it's not like,
Yeah, they'll
I'm
just
hungry.
rampage you.
No, I think
I
they
think-
don't eat meat, do they?
in that picture I
know.
saw about that dude,
They eat like everything.
like, apparently that hippo that guy adopted ate him.
Oh, so they're like the pigs of the water.
I guess so, yeah. But like a shark, most of the time, unless they're being attacked or they're hungry, they won't mess with you.
Except for tiger sharks.
Oh, okay. They're
They eat
the
everything.
wasps.
Tiger
of the water.
sharks are mean. Yeah.
They're like the goats of the ocean.
Oh yeah,
They find like
they're
license
just gonna
plates,
screw
and
with you.
Priuses, and all kinds of
Just
stuff.
gonna eat
inside those
whatever.
things.
Yeah, man. I feel like I could just get in a hot tub with a shark, you know? I could just have a good time. That's what Shark Tale taught me.
Yeah.
You just chill.
Wasn't that the gay shark?
Yeah.
Ugh.
What a weird movie. Hey. Let's go to the PCC.
Let's do it.
Let's go to Pierce's Culture Corner. What a weird transition. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's Christmas. What's the day? The 21st? Yeah, 21st. Hey, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry more Christ.
Merry more Christ. We didn't do a Christmas episode this year. Well, we did Christmas episodes last year. So if you're,
But-
later this week we will have our Christmas Eve special.
Yes.
And so on Christmas Eve, tune in. We'll release that.
Can I talk about it?
Do what?
Yeah,
Can I
please.
talk about it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So our desire is to always put the focus on Jesus, and especially in
Absolutely.
this season where we remember his coming, his birth as one of us. And so what we want to do is just celebrate that.
Mhm.
Just it's a shorter episode, but we're basically just going to put the focus back on Jesus. We'll be in a living room videoing this for the podcast, where what we're asking you to do is either Christmas Eve with us when we release it, or Christmas Day, get your family together and join with us, and we'll kind of walk you through some scriptures. We'll walk through some prayer, and it's just a good time for us to all put our focus back on Jesus. So mark your calendars, 24th, 25th. If you want to do it the day after Christmas, it's fine, whenever. But we want you to get your family together, whoever's there, and join us for this 10
Just
to
a few
15
minutes.
Yeah, 10 to 15 minutes of just walking through just some important texts about Jesus and just some prayer time. It's just our heart to always put the focus back on Jesus, and we feel like, especially around Christmas. I mean, to be honest, like I think one of the best ways for us, if you didn't listen to the episode last year, we don't hate presents. Like we
Right.
don't hate celebrating any of those things. And so if you wonder as a parent, like, how do I keep the focus on Jesus in the midst of all these cultural things? This is a way we want to offer for you as a catalyst in your parenting or with your family, whoever you're with, just to put the focus on Jesus as we celebrate Christmas together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have we decided? Are we doing the Lord's Supper again on this year's episode?
Well, I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you'll have some bread and juice or wine or whatever your family's comfortable with, and then you can take the Lord's Supper with us during the video.
Yeah, it's a great time. I love it. Toss. And toss, catch, open.
Great success.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a great time later this week on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, day of Christmas, whatever it'll work for you.
It's not going so
It's
well.
oh man,
You good?
I got nervous for you. Yeah, so my PCC is wrapped around my PTT is wrapped around Christmas here. I'm so distracted, but
Sorry.
it's okay. No, it's fine.
You're good. Roll on.
No, I no, it's fine.
Just radio silence there. Huh,
No, I
Pierce?
like it. Yeah,
we
that
go.
was so easy for you. Yeah, round of applause for Steven. Woohoo. We did something to it. I didn't hear that word. Santa Claus. So we talked about Christmas, Christmas. We talked a lot about Santa last year. We did a Q&A last year. We had longer form episodes wrapped around Christmas and Christmas traditions and a lot of the history of these different traditions last year. And so go into the archives of Simpler, learn about our views on that. We approach it from a scriptural standpoint. We approach it from a simpler viewpoint, as it were. So you can see a lot of that. But my PCC, it's coming from just Pierce's standpoint a lot this time, and looking at Santa Claus. And so we don't do Santa Claus from the traditional standpoint in our household, where we teach Riley, our daughter, to believe in Santa Claus as truth. We don't do that. And so there's a lot of seeing family and extended family that Riley's young. I'm not used to the conversations every year. I'm still at the beginning point. I'm becoming a real parent. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm becoming a real parent. I'm not there yet. I'm becoming there, right? It's slowly having those conversations, and it's just like we've been talking over the last few episodes of like, I'm trying to temper allowing my emotions to get ahead of me with having those conversations, because the conversations I had last year, people tend to, when you tell them that you're not doing things a certain way, that they do them, or that they've always done them, or that they think you should do them, they usually get offended by that.
Sure.
And they usually bring all their emotion into that, and they usually get mad at you about that, right? And so going into this week being Christmas and having these conversations with extended family members and stuff like that, man, I'm praying for patience, first of all, but also just a heart that would proclaim the gospel in the midst of that. And because I know there's going to be a slight offense regardless. Like, hey, I don't do things the way that you think we should do things. But we can have a conversation about that, and that's not wrong. And the culture commentary in the midst of all of that is a challenge to you guys. I want you guys, if you haven't heard our talks over Christmas and over those traditions and over those things, I'd highly encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes during this season. I think I'd love to hear, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you haven't heard those things and you have just been going with the flow of whatever you've done since you were a kid, and you've never really thought of Santa Claus, you never really thought of the reason why we do certain things here in America in 2021, go back and listen to it. I mean, I think it'd be a fun way to challenge it. I think it'd be good for you to join into that conversation. But also one thing to challenge is, man, don't get so stuck in your tradition that you're going to allow any sort of offense or change or contradictory stance to that tradition so thwart you that you're going to begin a fight or a conflict from a few weeks ago begin between you and another person who doesn't do things that way. I feel like that's so silly in nature, and I just feel like we can just have a conversation. I really, really do. I honestly do. And I feel like I don't know why with Christmas there's so much weight on Santa Claus when the other side of the coin, it's not even a coin in nature, when the other side of the conversation is Jesus. Like that's what feels so weird to me, right?
Right.
It's not like we're saying like, who's your favorite Avenger? Like, it's not like we're like really, really, it's not like Iron Man and Spider-Man are coming out on the same weekend and we're like, you bought an Iron Man ticket? And you're like, we're like, those are on the same playing field, right? They're both Marvel characters. It's no big deal. We can argue over that all day long. But what we're doing is we're like, you didn't teach her about Santa Claus for the sake of the gospel? And it's like, but when you phrase it that way, that sounds so silly.
Sure.
But that's what they're doing. That's in essence what's happening. Is like what you're saying is you would rather not teach this as truth so that you can elevate Jesus to his proper place. How dare you? Like, that's how it feels coming at us, but that's not what they mean.
Yeah, because they think that it's all wrapped up into one like cultural viewpoint of Christmas.
Ugh.
So like if you don't celebrate Santa, then you don't actually do Christmas. Like it's not, like, oh wait, you don't have a Christmas tree?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's all wrapped up into one thing. I think is what I find most common in people's perspective of that. And I think there's really shrewd ways to do. Well, look, we talked about this last year. I think one of my concerns was that my kids, because I agree with you, but my kids, I didn't want my kids to be those like weird kids at school who don't know anything about Santa Claus. They're like, who's that? You know what I mean? Like that's like asking for them to get made fun of at school. So I think there's a shrewd way to like teach them about the cultural viewpoints of Christmas without elevating Santa Claus. But to your point, that's not usually how the conversation goes.
No.
It's either I teach my kids about Santa Claus as far as believing that he comes down the chimney. By the way, have you ever looked up a chimney before? Like, it's maybe the most outrageous thing you've ever heard. Anyways,
It's magic.
You got to believe, Micah.
We just tore ours down.
You got to believe in your heart.
My kids are out of luck.
No presents for you.
Did you not see the Santa Claus?
Oh yeah. It comes through.
He makes one. He creates one.
Oh yeah, he does create one. Never mind.
Yeah.
Or if they're just those tubes, he can just.
Well, it was Tim Allen. So him and Al got together and built a fireplace.
There you go.
He could come down.
That's a great theory. Gosh, I want to see that. Where like Al's the head.
Al's building.
He's the head elf.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I don't think you can necessarily live in a. I mean, we still watch those. We still watch the Santa Claus every year. Like we still watch those. I think those movies are fun. I think there's certain aspects of the tales of Santa Claus that are fun. But that's what they are. They're tales. I mean, I think the true stories revolving around St. Nicholas are fun.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, what was the council that he got up in, or who was the guy that he got up in and punched?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but that story regarding.
We talked about that a year ago.
Yeah, that's been a year since it didn't come out.
That's
I forgot
Santa
that.
Claus.
Yeah.
That's the true Santa Claus.
Ho ho ho. He's like ho ho no.
Oh no, man!
I want to see that shirt with like Santa, like Saint Nick, like bam, just jacking somebody.
It's so funny.
Steven, you got a t-shirt company.
Yeah, we can do that.
Make it happen. Make
yeah.
it happen. So anyway, culture commentary. There's an aspect of letting people celebrate Christmas the way that they want to celebrate Christmas in regards to our brothers and sisters, as long as they allow certain aspects to not elevate over Jesus. I think that this is an amazing holiday that we have to proclaim Christ as Savior.
Well, let's say it differently than that. Let's say that anything in our life that we feel we need to elevate to a higher place than Jesus in any given circumstance is problematic.
True.
And so if it's your career, if it's your legacy, if it's your finances, if it's like, if you feel that making Christmas about Santa carries more value than making Christmas about Christ, that's problematic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And let's just be really honest.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe a Christmas Eve service or whatever, growing up, like me growing up in a so-called Christian household, aside from the nativity scene that we would set up with all of our other Christmas decorations.
Which is always wrong.
Yes. And aside from the Christmas Eve service that we went to sometimes, there wasn't any other emphasis on Jesus ever growing up.
Because you checked it off the list.
Yeah. And so that's my point, though, is if we're more concerned with the trappings of Christmas that are not Christ exalting, then something's out of whack.
One of the things we're doing later this week on Christmas Day that I've been wanting to do forever, and I always forget until Christmas Day to like plan it. I've been wanting to do forever is we'll do presents Christmas morning in our house, and then we're gonna get dressed and go deliver presents to family or families in need. And I think that's obviously not a rule. I don't think that should be like everybody does it. But as a parent, like as a dad, I want my kids to think about Christmas even from the perspective of giving, like not just receiving, like that Jesus was the gift. You know what I mean? So we celebrate him, but then as a means to proclaim that gift, we go bless other people. You know what I mean? For the sake of the gospel. So, I mean, obviously not a rule, but it's just like, I'm trying to, with you, Pierce, like trying to think of more ways to like shift the focus or not shift, like to put Jesus in the forefront.
Yeah. That's great. Sometimes
your transitions suck.
I just worry about that.
Yeah.
I worry about how people are going to treat me in the midst of this and the choices that I've made in regards to these things, but it doesn't feel like they're bad choices. And the worry just piles on top of each other. And worry.
Hey,
what a coincidence that I would say that sentence right then.
Right.
As we're transitioning.
You didn't even know.
I didn't even know. Look at, what are we talking about today, Ryan?
Today we are going to talk about being anxious and worrying. And this comes from one of our regular listeners, Wendy, who...
Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy. And she knows that we did one on depression, but she asked if we would do one on anxiety, and she noticed we did one on depression, but wants us to do one on anxiety and worry. So, Wendy, here you have it. This is our episode on anxiety and worry, just for you, and we're going to talk about what that looks like as a believer. Can I just say,
as we get started, one of the best ways to remove anxiety from your life.
There it is. Dr. Pepper. Still not a sponsor. 44 episodes in.
They're never going to sponsor. I mean, they may send us
Dr.
Pepper.
That would be a sponsorship to me.
Yeah, that'd be
if they send us free Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even a free.
We need health benefits, though.
A free Dr.
If they could just stock your fridge every episode.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not very big. We're not asking for much.
I know.
All right. We'll
6 or
buy
8.
a big fridge.
Yeah.
But Ryan.
Yes, Pierce.
Aren't anxiety and worry just a natural part of the human condition?
Well, actually, Pierce, yes. However, however, the aim for those of us who are in Christ is, paraphrasing Colossians chapter 3, set your mind on the things above where Christ is, not on the things of the earth, right? And so we are supposed to have a heavenly Christ perspective of life and a heavenly Christ perspective of our time upon this earth and the situations and the circumstances that we're in. Paul in Philippians 1 who is arrested and in prison. He says, man, I hear there's a lot of people now who are preaching because of my boldness for Christ. And some are preaching out of their love for Christ, and some are preaching out of their envy and their hatred for me. And he goes, great. So long as Christ is being preached, I don't care. Like, I mean, this dude is just like, cool, sounds good. And so this idea that, we're just going to have anxiety, we're just going to have worry at some point. What it really boils down to is a lack of confidence in God. And I want to be really clear just from the outset of this, that we are not saying a confidence that God will remove the troublesome circumstances of your life, because he might not. We have brothers and sisters around the world who will lose their life today because of following Jesus. And so it's not even a removal of those things. It's the peace that we see on Stephen's face in Acts. We're given some insight in Acts 7 to Stephen, who his face looks like the face of an angel as these men are charging at him with bared teeth and covering their ears and screaming at him like children, and then dragging him outside of the city and throwing rocks at him until he's dead. And he has this peace because his attention and his affection is set on Christ. And so anxiety and worry, I think, are really good indicators that there is something that we are seeking to be in control of rather than submitting that to God. Because if our confidence rests in ourselves, there is tons of room for worry. And if our confidence rests in God, there's zero room for worry. And so
I think control is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the right, not from even like, I don't even know what like a psychological perspective is, but as followers of Jesus, it's us wanting to be in control. Like I don't have a tendency to be a worrisome person in general.
Must be nice.
But I, through the years, have worried about money a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is the nature of how we've done ministry. We're all bivocational. And then Ryan, you and I, for a lot of that time, our income was going and doing events for other churches. And so there was never a guaranteed income. So there were so many conversations we had about work, like, are we going to make it this month? And it's like, it didn't matter how many times God provided, I would worry the next time. So even though I don't have a tendency to worry, I think control is a good way to say it, because it was something I couldn't fix. I was out of control of being able to fix that situation without going and getting another job.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think control is a good way to say it. It's when we don't have control is when we tend to start to worry and find ourselves anxious.
Yeah. I think that even the desire to be in control can promote anxiety and worry, because, well, I'll give you an example. I know I've used this before here on the podcast, but get used to it because I've only got limited number of stories. So,
and you're older, and that's what older people do. Is
we just keep repeating the same stories. Have I told you this one yet? So I can't tell you though, honestly, like I have realized that now I am just 3 years and 5 months away from being 50, and I can't wait. Like that's exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, sure. No.
There were times like Micah when
For all my Minnesota friends out there, I was schooling these boys on some Minnesota phrases.
Heck yeah. There were times when I was traveling and preaching full time, and I've shared this with you guys before, that as I was walking out the door and I would gather Michelle and the boys to pray for them, I would say, God, take care of my family until I get back. And even though it sounds like a good prayer, what I was really saying is that when I'm here, I'm taking care of my family. And when I'm gone, you're taking care of my family. And it's interesting how if I believe, and I'm not saying to be stupid or foolish or whatever, right? But like, if I believe that my safety and my family's safety and my provision and my family's provision and our health is all on my shoulders, if I believe that that's my responsibility, there's no way I get out of that without some level of anxiety or worry.
Yeah.
You know, I'm reading every single label on every single box. I'm worried all the time about whether or not the doors got locked. And you know what I mean? Like, but if my confidence is in God, I'm, again, not lack of wisdom, not being a dumb butt about something, but like, if my confidence is in God, then whatever happens next, my confidence remains in God. I'm able to face what comes next free of worry and free of anxiety, because I know who God is, even if what comes next is my death.
When does, you guys' thoughts on this? When does, I don't know what to call it, like tension in life turn to worry? Like, what is that line where you like are, just a dumb example, like I say we, like anybody else really like did this. My wife helped me put this down, but a little bit. She put we buried down, but we put crushed granite in a section of our backyard, and I got 5 yards of crushed granite and thought I had enough, and then I started putting down the crushed granite and realized I might not have enough. And there's that point where I'm like, we would say culturally, I was worried about whether or not I had enough crushed granite.
Right.
What's that point where like, I wouldn't say that was a wrong thing to be like concerned or whatever word you want to use there. What's the point like when that becomes something that's an unhealthy?
So I think this is a difference probably between what we mean culturally and what we mean biblically. Knowing you, I can't imagine that you were worried about that.
I was not worried
from a
about
cultural standpoint. Like you were, it was something you were contemplating. It was something like,
I was figuring out solutions for what would.
So as an example, I made some brown sugar bars a couple of weeks ago for our staff retreat. And it had been since last staff retreat, since I'd made them, every stinking time that I make them, no matter what pan I put them in, it boils up over the top of the pan every single time. And so now I feel a little bit of anxiety, right? And so now whenever I do this, I take the pan and I put that on a cookie sheet.
Oh, smart.
And then underneath the cookie sheet on the tray underneath, I put foil.
Yeah.
So it won't get to the bottom and burn because it smokes up the whole stinking house. And there's a little bit of like checking it when it's time for it to boil over. You know what I mean? There isn't anything about that though that really shapes even my afternoon. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we still use the language, man. I was a little worried it was going to boil over.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was asking.
Kind of as a colloquialism.
Yeah, because I think it gets fuzzy. Like it gets hazy in how we define those things. If someone says like, I'm worried about this, that could either mean like I actually am experiencing deep anxiety, like or it could mean like I just am concerned that this is going to happen or not happen. And so I think that that haziness almost, I feel like, makes it worse for people who actually deal with anxiety. And
they're probably anxious about which ones
worry wards because it's almost a culturally accepted thing.
Yeah.
That's my thought on it. Is it like I was worried as whether or not I had enough crushed granite. Then if I say it to somebody, they're like, well, I'm worried about everything in life.
Yeah.
It's just okay,
Or you have somebody on the other side who's going to quote Matthew 6 at you and say, you shouldn't be worried about that. Worry can't add a single, and you're like, well, I wasn't actually worried about it,
I hope someone quotes Matthew 6 to me next time I say something.
Next time you say, man, I was a little worried that we were going to, well, I think if we go back.
Are you worried that wasp is going to sting you?
Whoa. Oh, nice. We got a wasp up in here.
I'm allergic to wasps.
I got you covered, dude.
Good.
I think,
I trust you. Yeah.
You go back to this time 2 years ago, and we were finishing building and renovating the church, right? 2 years ago.
That sounds a lot more intense than it actually was.
I don't know. That last month, it was pretty intense. We were there every single day.
Oh, yeah.
We were working 14-hour days. We were finishing stuff up.
For me.
and then, yes. And then we started January 26th of 2019.
2020.
2020. Yeah, thank you. We started January 26th, 2020. January 25th, we had a work day to clean because of all the renovation
and finish. Like we were hanging the front door.
I know.
We were doing
we worked that day for like 17 hours probably. We worked the entire day that day, finishing for our services the next morning. And I don't think, for me, maybe I was like, man, are we going to get it done? But
I wasn't worried about it.
For you, Micah, it was like, well, whatever's going to be done will be done. Like we're still going to be able to have service tomorrow, and it's going to look like it needs to look, and it's going to need to be the space it needs to be.
And back to the control thing, I don't know if this is like the opposite of what we were saying earlier, but like I knew that I was going to be able to do what needed to get done to have the service for the next day, even if not everything got done. So I feel like I might have worried about it if I didn't have control.
Yeah.
Like if it was out of my hands. If I knew these things that needed to get done might get done and might not get done. Like if I had delegated some stuff out to people,
then you'd be anxious.
I might actually have been worried. So I think it's to your point earlier that it's not, it's the control issue that causes worry.
And one thing for us to keep in mind is whatever, if you hadn't had a chance to replace the front door looks way better. But if you hadn't had a chance to replace the front door, Christ still would have been proclaimed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have had the look that we wanted as people walked up. one of the things that I try to remind myself, and what has helped me a lot, just very practically, and I wish that I could say it was a strict Jesus thing. It needs to be more of a Jesus thing. But one of the things that has helped me a lot is to go, is this going to bother me in a year?
Mm.
And 99 times out of 100, it's not going to bother me in a year. And so I go, okay, so why is this killing me right now? Like, a lot of my worry and anxiety is self-induced because I wait to the last minute to do something I should have done last month or whatever, and I put myself in a spot where I'm anxious about those things. But one of the things that two texts that I'll give us that we can think on, and then these guys, Pierce and Micah, can expand on a little bit. But one, Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving in your hearts, let your requests be made known to God." And so the first response, I think, to anxiety and worry is to, I know it sounds trite and cliche, but to come to God with it. Like, just say, God, like, here's what I'm worried about. Here's what I'm anxious about.
My mom used to say, why pray when you can worry?
Right. Sarcastically, of course. Yeah. And so the next two verses in Philippians says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is lovely, whatever is right, whatever is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And so that, I think we quote those verses as separate thoughts, but they're one thought. So don't be anxious, give everything to God, and then focus on what is true, noble, right, excellent, or praiseworthy. And so I am a person who really likes truth. And the truth of God has really gotten me. I talked about this some in the depression issue or episode, but the truth of who God is really has worked me through depression, and therefore has also worked me through worry and anxiety, because how I feel, I recognize is valid, but not usually based on truth. And so I can pause and go, okay, what is true?
Connected for you? Like, you're not depressed anymore, but you still have moments of worry and anxiety.
Yeah.
Do they come from the same place for you?
For me, yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it's wanting to be in control. It's wanting to.
That's actually a new revelation for you, isn't it? Like, for yourself. Didn't you tell me that? Like, you've realized that it's. Like,
yeah, I've talked about it. I talked about it with my youngest sister recently. And so one of the things that my youngest sister pointed out, we had kind of a text thread, because I started the conversation with my sister Lisa and just was saying, what do you think about people who have to always be right? Like, where does that come from? Because my sister has studied a lot of psychology, super smart, just turned 31 last month. So we have a big gap between us.
Oh, hey, it's me.
Yeah. Well, you're not my sister, but.
What?
Yeah. Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Wait a minute.
But one of the things that is interesting is, and I got to be really careful not to get on my soapbox with this, but
what is that?
Soapbox.
Yeah.
It's
a box of soap.
What is that?
It's just a funny statement.
It's because what they used to do, they used to get the big old,
they take the big box,
the old
Back in
wooden
Ryan's
box, and
day.
throw it,
When,
flip it over, and stand on it in the
like Abraham Lincoln and those area when they like do these speeches and stuff.
like King Solomon. The Bible says that after he finished the temple, he built a 4x4 foot platform to stand up on so that he could be seen by all the crowds.
Soapbox.
No, but I'm just
what?
I'm just
Well,
saying.
it was there was I forget what time period it was, but they would literally, those old boxes of soap, they would take to like the old town crier mentality. They would go to the middle of the town square, flip it over, an actual soapbox, and it would be that same mentality of like,
I need to be seen.
Hear ye, yeah. But
So
it was just the poor people would use soapboxes to do it. And
what
they would
I'm
tell
talking
people,
about.
hey, the horse and buggy are here. Time to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And it was Ryan's day.
Too
You know?
liberal for that.
So what I would anyway, Lisa and I were talking about this, and cliches are sometimes cliches for a reason, right? Like, I mean, things happen enough and you go, okay, that's painting with a broad brush. But myself and Haley and Jesse and Lisa, my three sisters, we were raised in an alcoholic home environment. There was a lot of fear, and there was a lot of insecurity, and there was a lot of questioning about where you stood as a kid and if you were going to be, what life was going to look like from day to day. And what's really interesting is one of the cliches of growing up in an alcoholic home is that the adult children of alcoholics have a strong desire to have control over their environment. And so my sisters and I have talked about how that has manifested differently in all of us. We all have our own areas where we really want to exercise control. And so for me, not blaming it, I do think that at some point you're an adult and you're responsible for your own behavior and your own whatever, but like not blaming it on my dad, but saying that the home that I grew up in, my environment absolutely shaped me. I'm reading a book right now called The Hidden Half, and it's super interesting, but it just talks about how there is a hidden half of factors in the world that shape people, and we can't know like what's going to shape one person to be one way or another. And so like, it talks about how, Tyson is angry and spent time in jail and went to jail for rape.
Tyson.
Yeah. Sorry. And,
Mike Tyson.
and how he bit a guy's ear off and all this kind of stuff and didn't know who his dad was and was kind of sure it was this guy, but that guy abandoned him and grew up on the hard side of town and da-da-da-da. And the argument says, you have this guy like Mike Tyson, and you're like, man, he's just a product of his environment, but his brother is a well-respected doctor. and so it's not that, Yeah. And so I think that what people do, we see this all the time in the secular world. People say, look, I was able to shake off my environment to become the person I wanted to be. And what's interesting is we as Christians somehow find ourselves to be weaker than the guy who drags himself up. But like we have Christ, we have the Spirit. And we're just kind of like, well, this is just what I am. This is just the environment I am. This is just the circumstances I grew up in. And we wallow in this worry or this fear or this depression or this anxiety, thinking, I can't make anything different, instead of going, no, there is a difference. I know the God of the universe. And whatever happens in my life, however my life unfolds, I know God, who is in control of all things, master of all things.
I just wonder how often we actually cast all of our cares on him with the recognition that he cares for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 Peter 5:7. Great text. We don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the core of the issue for us as believers.
Yeah.
I mean, we could understand the tendencies of what causes us to worry and feel anxiety, but I think that too often we'll say things like, God doesn't, he just needs my big stuff.
Yeah.
One of the hardest lessons I learned is that God cares for you in general. Now I try to pray about, there are so many times when I am terrible with keeping my tools in one spot when I'm doing a project. And I can't tell you the number of times I'm like last month when I was working on I was painting the outside of the house and working on the yard, trying to finish the backyard, and I was working 13-hour days, and there'd be a point where I'd be kind of losing my mind because I'm so tired. And I'm like, I can't find my drill. And I would just be like, God, you know how tired I am. Can you help me find my drill? Where's my drill? And I find my drill.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's about finding my drill. I think it's about God saying, I actually care about being part of your life.
Yeah.
And it's a constant reminder that that is a care.
Yeah.
That's a really simple, doesn't really affect any other part of my life minus that very moment. But it's a simple thing. And it's this idea. He doesn't say cast your most important cares on him.
Yeah.
It's cast all your cares on him.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to train ourselves consistently to just take it before God, not like a passing prayer. I can't say, God, help me find the drill, being like, I don't know if God's really gonna help me find the drill or not.
Yeah.
I'm legitimately asking, God, you're there. You're right there.
You
know
it.
where the drill is.
Yeah.
I can't find it. Where's the,
Yeah.
Well, to continue this idea of anxiety and worry and taking everything to God, I think maybe, Micah, one of the reasons we don't take everything to him, the lost drill, is because we have an expectation of how Christians should think or behave or act or whatever. We feel like we should, I don't know, we should pray a certain way, we should look a certain way, we should talk a certain way, we should whatever. I think one of the texts we had talked about before we started recording was this idea in Luke 10 where Jesus is in Bethany visiting Martha and Mary, and Martha is busy with all the housework and cooking, and presumably for her guests, right? Jesus and the disciples. And she says, Lord, she goes, Mary's sitting at the feet of Jesus, rebuke my sister, tell her to come help. And he goes, look, you're anxious, you're worried about a lot. Your sister's chosen what's best, just to sit at my feet. And I think maybe we as Christians could eliminate some of our anxiety if we quit trying to perform for God and would believe what you just said about God, Micah, that he actually cares for us.
Yeah.
That we're not having to try to win his affection. We're not trying to have to make him happy with us. We're pleased with us, or we're not having to try to do things that are going to make him feel better about us. He loves us. And I mean, think about how much anxiety and worry would dissipate if we just believed we had a God in heaven who cared for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought about this. Go ahead.
I was gonna say onto that as well. Like I was thinking about that same relationship I've seen so often. I have some extended family that I'll see very, very, very rarely. That I'll see that same relationship was just like we'll show up and all the tension's so high, and we've got to put on this show, and we've got to do all these things. We've got to do this. We've got to act a certain way. We've got to be a certain way. We've got to serve a certain way. We've got to, if you eat a certain way, you got to talk a certain way. It's just, gosh, you be around this family.
Yeah, the holidays are super stressful for a lot of people.
Gosh, you just got to put on a show, man.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that, but we see time and time again in culture, like you've got to convince people of like, make yourself at home. Make yourself at home. But that means something to somebody.
Yeah.
Of like, dude, kick back, man. Like, kick your shoes off. Like, make yourself at home.
Yeah.
And when most people hear that statement, they have those people that they relate that to. And what's funny is I've never thought about that as such a brilliant illustration in regards to like what God wants you to do. Like, just chill out, dude.
Yeah.
Like, make yourself at home. Like, this is your home. Like,
Yeah.
this is where
Put your feet up.
this is where you belong. Like, you're home. Stop putting on a show, brother. Like, let's talk for real.
Yeah.
Let's cast all your anxieties onto me. Like, let's talk for real. Every little detail. You couldn't find your drill today? I knew where it was. Why don't you talk to me about it?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do, man? Like, yeah, especially around the holidays. Like, I think about just those, man, if we could just chill.
That's one thing, lost drills, those kinds of things. That's one thing that I have learned really well from my sister, Haley. Like, Haley prays for lost drills. She loses an earring.
Wait, for like drills that don't know Jesus?
That they would get saved. Yes.
But like she loses an earring and she's praying for it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think she has learned that really well.
I was just going to say earlier, there is this formal aspect of prayer, which I think is important. Jesus did it, where he'd go away from everybody and go to a private place and pray. But I think there's also this essence now where we have, the curtain has been torn. We have this spirit that lives in us. We have this open conversation with God. And if we limit our conversation with God to just the formality of those kinds of prayers, I think we lose that aspect of the relationship. There are times I still listen to the Bible a lot. And a lot of times when I'm listening to the Bible, I'm actually playing a speed round of disc golf or I'm running the course. There are some days when I start on the first tee and I just don't even turn the Bible app on because I just want to spend time just talking and listening to God.
Yeah.
And it's those moments when it's like, I mean, I guess you could call that formal because it's like a time set aside for it.
Sure.
But I mean, the conversations, sometimes I wish I could just record it and show people. I'll throw a disc and throw a bad shot. I'm like, God, what in the world? Like, like, what did I do? It's, I think that's it. It's this relationship you have with God. Why do we think that God doesn't care about us? We're his kids.
Yeah.
He sent his son to die on our behalf, and you think he doesn't care about earrings and drills? And I don't think that those things are necessarily important aspects of life, but I think engaging God in those what we call non-important small things in life is like a great foundation for a relationship where when something intense happens, it is less likely that we're going to run to ourselves or other people, and more likely that our first instinct, because we've conditioned ourselves this way, is to just be like, God, here.
Yeah. Well, and can I say too that I think a really important component to eliminating some of that anxiety and worry is being part of a community of believers.
Absolutely.
That loves you and cares for
Absolutely.
you. That's not performance based. That's not moralistic. That's not, how well did you do this week? That's the first thing that they're asking you isn't how many times did you read your Bible? Like the first thing they're asking you is about you. Like, how are you? Like, how can I love you? How can I serve you?
You can be honest with. Like, I am having a hard time. I feel anxious today. I feel like I'm worrying today.
And to have a group of people who will come alongside you and love you, as the body of Christ and as believers. And
like, there's something really powerful about someone else praying for you.
Yeah. Well, and how many times, Micah, have you and I been at the end of our financial rope for a month, and somebody in the body of Christ like met our need in that moment,
Yep.
you know, and God used somebody
every single time. And just
Yeah.
to be clear, that doesn't mean like that's the rule. Like Paul says that I've known what it is to be in want, and I've
Yep.
known what it is to have a lot. There were times in Paul's life when God didn't, obviously he didn't have an electric bill, but like his electric bill didn't get paid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's funny to me sometimes when
his electric bill never got paid.
Never got paid. We'll say like, oh, my bills aren't met, but I got a cell phone and cable and internet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I think sometimes when our needs aren't met in quotation marks, that there's got to be some understanding that there's caveats to what we're considering being met. But on the flip side, my take is it doesn't mean God doesn't care about that. Like,
Right.
the whole financial conversation is a different conversation, but the point is God cares.
Right.
He does. He cares about us, and he wants us to have a relationship with him that will hopefully cause us to not have anxiety and worry. That's the simple viewpoint of it, Pierce, if you're going to ask that is,
Yeah.
living without anxiety and worry is living in a relationship with God. And I think how we get ourselves out, how we come out of worry and anxiety is turning to God and letting God be the one that removes that from us.
Yeah. Turn to God in the midst of that, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to think of all the different, if there's any pushback to that
And
statement at all.
Always.
what you said about Ryan, what you said about community, maybe like if you're listening and you're someone who like struggles with anxiety and worry, I think obviously the first place to run is to the Lord in prayer. And then I think you got to find someone else that you trust, that you know loves Jesus, that knows the word, that's solid, and just talk to him about it. And listen, what I mean is I'm telling you this as someone who has a friend named Ryan Dalglish who tends to worry. And coming from me, who is someone that doesn't tend to worry, don't look for someone who's just going to tell you what to do. Look for someone who's actually going to listen to the things that you're saying.
Yeah.
Just be
And
part
point
of
you
your
to
life.
Christ. You know, I mean, the Bible says that we're to bear one another's burdens,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a big part of this.
It would be really easy to hear someone say, I'm really worried about this, and just say, no, you're being stupid. And sometimes that needs to be the case, but more often than not, what people need is just someone to listen to them, to pray for them. And it's funny how you can, like in the midst of praying for somebody, kind of help shape their perspective
Sure.
on what's important.
Yeah.
Not
so-
like you're preaching through prayer, but just-
those of you who have friends that struggle with anxiety and worry, you can be the voice that helps them come back to the Philippians 4, 6, 7, and 8. You can be the one. Sometimes somebody like myself who has a difficult time, has struggled with depression or insecurity, I have a difficult time not being anxious, but casting all my cares right on God and with a heart of thanksgiving. And so you might be the means by which that gets done in their life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying for them, I'm saying with them. Like, I'm saying like you come alongside them and say, listen, I know that right now you can't let go of this anxiety, but I'm here with you, and this is what I'm praying for you. And then what you can do is you can remind them of verses 7 and 8 of Philippians. And I'm not saying take them to the Bible and read the verses. I'm saying that you can remind them what is true. You can remind them what is noble and what is right and what is trustworthy and what is praiseworthy. And because sometimes guys like me, and we need that. So if you're not the person who's struggling with anxiety and worry, but you have a friend who is, then you can be the body and you can help bear their burdens, and you can be the means, like Micah's saying, to gently turn them back to a correct perspective of Jesus.
And I think it's always enlightening, and as far as like revealing things about yourself too in those moments. It's not like I don't worry or don't find myself anxious at times,
Whatever.
you know?
Jerk.
I think it's a good reminder though. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it's the same fix through all anxiety and worry.
Yeah.
It's a simpler viewpoint.
Simpler. It's simpler with something that does not seem very simple at all. It can be simpler. Turn to Jesus. He cares. You guys don't have anything else to add to that? Micah, do you got a simpler hack for us?
I do. I'd like to talk about Christmas storage
Christmas storage.
because it sucks.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just a few weeks away from having to pack up all that stuff.
Ugh. So yeah, just give you a little precursor. There's a whole lot of things I've seen that are pretty genius ways to do some storage. But let me give you some. In the next couple weeks, I'll give you some storage options. But for today, what I'd like to talk about is storing that extra wrapping paper you have. I've been the last few years on a tear trying to get rid of all this stupid stuff in our house that just sits in closets in the attic for like, my rule now is like, if it's like a year and a half and we haven't touched it, it's probably going to be gone. Like, unless it's for some specific purpose that we've, said from the beginning of why we got it. But wrapping paper is one of those things, like we used to put it in the garage, and then when you get it out next year, it's like not usable because it's kind of been in, in the heat. It's a Texas heat. So one really easy way to do storage for wrapping paper that'll keep it out of the way and keep it usable for the next year is actually to use a garment bag like you would get when you got your clothes dry cleaned, and you can put the wrapping paper in there, zip it up, and hang it in a closet, and it's nice, efficient, out of the way, and it's still in your house.
If you need it,
then
like
it's there.
The year,
it's accessible. Yeah. If you put it in the attic, you're done. I'm just telling you that right now. Wrapping paper in the attic is not going to be usable again, so you might as well just throw it away if you're going to put it in the attic. But a garment bag hanging in your closet.
On a side note, I get so excited to see Jess's reiterations of these in video.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So
Thank you,
good.
Jess Martin, Mr. Torch Lighting Solutions.
That's so good.
Yeah, I love that he started doing that.
His videos are great. I can't wait to see that one.
Yeah. You need to just come up with something crazy that he has to do. He's like,
just for you, Jess.
I'm going to do
just
everyone.
make up one that doesn't even work.
The easiest way to pick up dog poop is with your sunglasses.
Speaking of dog poop.
Yes.
Hey, Steven's over there.
Oh, man.
We are at the Garden Audio.
Hey,
as always.
Get that transition just fine.
That's
one in the beginning.
Can't do it. Go check out Steven at the Garden Audio on Instagram. Go see what he's doing. Say hello. Tell him we sent you. Say, hey, man, I love hearing you on Simpler Pod. You got such a nice, sweet, sexy voice. You're the best, Steven. I love you. Tell him all those things.
That's what Kenzie
He is
says.
married, so like, be careful how much you tell
I love
him.
you as a friend.
Yeah,
You're the best.
okay. Yeah.
You say sexy to your friends?
I do. I say,
That's
man.
awkward.
I say, hey, what's your love language? Words of affirmation? You're sexy.
You
We're not
sexy
friends
beast.
anymore.
You sexy beast.
I do think it's weird that he sits over there without a shirt on every time we record these
Butt naked,
podcasts.
Crazy. Like it.
While you're over there on social media, oh man, I should have taken that drink.
But if you subscribe to Patreon, you'll get to see all the behind this.
That's right.
Oh, on that note, we will have Patreon coming out by the end of the year. So if you're interested in being a supporter of Simpler Pod, and we'll have some special, I don't know what you call it, like perks.
Yeah.
For all our Patreon supporters in 2022. We'll got some cool stuff coming at you. So if you're interested, that'll be up and going by the end of the year. We will have all the links by the end of the year in our social media. We'll let you know in January about how to get connected with that and support us through the Patreon.
So be sure to follow at Simpler Pod on Facebook and Instagram so you can see how to support us through Patreon, so you can get all the cool perks, everything that's going to be happening over there. It's going to be exclusive to Patreon. We're not going to be posting that stuff anywhere. It's going to be exclusive to that. So you're going to see what's going on. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Google, wherever you are, go ahead and give a like, give a subscribe, give a review, whatever you're doing. Say, you know what? If you don't want to go to at the Garden Audio to say that Steven is sexy, just do it through review. Be like, you know what? I heard that Steven is sexy. Leave that on Google Podcasts. You know what? I bet they'll like it over there. And you know what? As always, keep Christ as core. What could be simpler than that? We'll see you guys next week.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry more Christ.